to order. Please know that this meeting is being live streamed through the Wilson County Schools YouTube channel, and the public can also view the meeting through links on the Wilson County Schools Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, and the Wilson County Schools website. Members of the board, you have before you the agenda. What is your pleasure?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell?
I move that we approve the agenda for the September the 14th, 2023 Wilson County Board of Education Working Session Meeting.
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Powell, seconded by both Mr. Breen and Mr. Boykin, that the agenda for the September 14, 2023 work session of the Board of Education be approved. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Members of the board, we are once again at the point where we are looking at facilities. We have been doing this on a periodic basis. We are back at that point. Unfortunately, a prior meeting had to be rescheduled, and the result is that we are here today. The administration is going to be providing us with long-range facilities planning, and we'll turn it over to the superintendent and administrative staff for the discussions that will ensue. Dr. Mills.
Madam Chair, board members, in your handouts, we've got the overview slides, but today the few things we want to cover, I've given you a list of those to get some feedback and direction, and then touch base quickly on a few things, but we did want to spend the majority of our time on the first several items. We have some folks here from our architectural firms, CMAR, and then also the track project at Hunt. So we've got to go through those items, I think, to bring the board up to speed, and we need this information from your perspective to be able to take that back to the county commissioners and determine next steps and continue on. So those first three items are where I think the majority of our time will be spent today. We also want to review back over the public school building repair and renovation funds, and I can share some new information about that. That might allow us to use some of those funds in a different way as well, and then a few odds and ends at the end. So I know our time's precious, and I wanted to focus on what's most important today, which is those major projects we've got ahead facing us. So with that in mind, the first item is the timeline for the new Frederick Douglass Elementary School, and the folks from Skinner, Farlow, and Kerwin and Barnhill Contractors are here, and they've brought handouts and a presentation that we're going to switch to.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ben.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. Okay. Hi, I am Alicia Kerwin. Glad to be back here again to give you a quick update on where we are with Frederick Douglass. And I don't, there we go. So You know that we had some stakeholder involvement meetings back in the spring of 2023, and so I thought I'd review those quickly with you. We had a stakeholder involvement meeting, a community meeting. The purpose of that meeting was to hear the community's vision for a new school while honoring the stories and values that were part of that school community since its original construction. So we had a really active meeting with them and heard a lot of great stories that really gave us a lot of insight into both what everyone values at the school today and what folks value from when the school was originally built. So that was really insightful for us. Some themes that came out of that were the sense of community, the value of excellence. This is a list here, teachers, additional space and storage, the preservation of history in some way through a new school, technology, improving the outdoor areas and experiences, the value of diversity at the school, and the feeling of being safe. We had asked them 2 questions to facilitate that. That was, what about your experiences do you value? And then what do you think are the top 3 things in designing a new school for this site? Then we had a really wonderful day that we spent with each of the grade levels at Frederick Douglass, and we basically asked them what they would like to see in a new school. So they were really free to just draw whatever they wanted. We presented a few boards at each table that had images of their existing school, along with images of some newer schools to kind of help spark their imagination. And these are some of the images that you see here. Soccer was a big part of their expression. A lot of schools that were drawn with 2 stories, they were drawn to like stairs, I think just the idea of going up and down and having fun. And a new entry, a lot of them drew something that was kind of a taller, bigger entry, and a lot of color. And many of them got very specific about the library and things they wanted there. One interesting thing is a lot of them wanted a nice space for their teachers, like a nice teacher lounge. I think they could all tell that their teachers needed a nice space, a place of respite, and a place to regroup. So it was interesting to see students have that in mind. So these were a number of things that came out of the work with them. Outdoor classrooms, play fields, I can't tell you how many of the kids love playing soccer, and we saw them do that. Fenced-in outdoor play, a vegetable garden, color came up a lot. They love the windows. They love the light in the gym. That's where we were that day. Built-in seating, they liked that. A nice entry. They liked seeing the classroom from the hallway, and they wanted a brain break space or a quiet space. A lot of kids talked about having a quiet space to go. And I think that was related to like this resting space in the halls, like a place where they could be by themselves, and then a nice space for their teachers. This clicker is going fast. And then we talked with each of the grade levels of teachers. Tanisha and I came down another day and basically spoke with each grade level and then also the staff at the school. And out of that, of course, came storage. You know, we all love storage, and the teachers there definitely wanted storage that was appropriate for what they were doing. Flexible furniture, natural lighting, outdoor classrooms, a lot of emphasis on nature and gardens, things they could do outside, places for messy activities, you know, teaching kind of easy cooking things where you learn about measuring and how things go together. You can teach life skills along with math skills with that. Color, covered areas for carpool and bus, safety and security, more outlets. And especially as we become more technologically savvy, you know, even our electrical codes now really require as many outlets as probably most school classrooms need for recharging devices. And then the gym, student cubbies and hooks, because they have a lot of after-school activities in the gym, and so it's helpful to have a place where students can store their things. So in terms of our design response to all of this, along with the program that has been established, this is a site plan that highlights some of those ideas and how they're coming to fruition in the new school. Saving the original, well, it's not really the original school sign, but the sign that indicates that this was the location of the original Frederick Douglass High School. That was important to the group. Bus loading, drop-off and loading is separate from the carpool. That came from both teachers, students, and the community. Courtyards in between each of these bays, that's along kind of the back side of the site. And then the soccer field and the run, and a track, a walking track or a running track, they can do that now. And then because we need to have a fire lane along the back, that's something that's really nice that can double as a place where you can do your 100-yard dash and your 50-yard dash. You can stripe it for games like hopscotch. So this is how we're kind of pulling in some of those ideas and things that we heard from the community. Another thing that came up was just how important folks in the community, who went to the original Frederick Douglass High School, wanted to be able to come back here and be able to tell their stories, which many of them were very, very interesting. And so in terms of siting the building and arranging the building, what we've done is that the cafeteria and that multi-purpose room are basically in the same location as the original auditorium. So there's a link there, right? It's a new building, but there's a link with the activities that take place sort of in a similar place on the site, along with the height and massing relate to that. It's not a copy, but it relates to it. And then the building wings create courtyards similar to the original school and its later addition. We heard a story that we didn't quite understand until it was explained to us, that before the gym was built, they used to actually, between the two wings, they used to actually have to burn the grass. They would bring grass in or have hay and burn it if it was wet, because they had to dry out the ground in order to play basketball and have basketball meets. So that's an important story for someone to say, hey, my grandmother used to tell me this story, and now we can come back here, right, and we have these bays, and they're not exactly the same, but you can tell your grandchild or your great-grandchild, I remember when I used to come and our school was sort of like this, and we'd have to, do this in this area to be able to play basketball. And aren't you lucky to have just this, a wonderful play space inside? And so letting the building be able to have the community continue to tell those stories, I think, is really important. And so from the outside, as we had mentioned, the cafeteria and the gym area sit there where the original auditorium is. So that gives some sense of what used to be there. It's not the same thing, but it has a relationship. On both sides, you can see in the orange circles, that's where the bus loading is and the covered carpool loading. And they do a couple things. They allow, first of all, kids to wait there if it's raining, which is nice. The second is they allow for an entrance into the gym that's not through the main school. So if you have an after-school activity, folks aren't necessarily having to walk through the main part of the school. They can come right into the gym for that after-school activity or weekend activity that somebody might be using the gym for or the multi-purpose room for. And then the distinct front entry. A lot of the students had drawn something really tall, tried to be a little bit more modest with it, but an entry that speaks to the school and that says this is an important place to be and to come and learn. Oh, sorry, this little clicker goes fast. So moving forward, we're in design development right now, and we're moving towards construction documents, which is when we bring a lot more detail and how it gets constructed. And so what we'd like to do as we begin to develop what the facade looks like with brick, it's brick and metal panels, is to look at some of these details that were on the original auditorium and the gym and bring those into the new building. So on the auditorium, there's this piece of block that's tall at the front that has those recesses. We'd like to find some way with our brick patterning to recall that. Might not be exact, but in some way to have that kind of a rhythm show up on the school that kind of ties these two buildings together, these two parts of history with this site. And then on the gymnasium, there's an interesting little detail on the front of it, the top of it, and that arch. And so we'd like to think about, are there places we could potentially use a pattern like that that recalls, what the gym was. And then there's also, on the gym, there is what's called called a Flemish bond. Usually you see it happening every other row. If you live in a house, you might have seen the pattern. But here it actually occurs where you would typically have a running bond. Those little orange bits are where the brick is shorter. So we're hoping that maybe in some way we can bring that pattern into the building. You might not know it's there, but it is, and so we thought that would be a good way to kind of help tie this history and this site together in the new building. And so I'll let Tanisha speak a little bit about some of the things we're thinking about in terms of bringing pieces forward in new ways.
So as Alicia mentioned, we are trying to aim to preserve the history of the existing school as much as we can. So bringing some of the existing materials on the inside and trying to recall some of the brick patterning on the outside, here's a couple ideas we have. So using the wood from the bleachers in the gym, the lower left image shows us creating this wall feature as you walk into the entry of the school. And later exploring the potential of, maybe there's something displayed on it, maybe it sits on its own, it kind of just honors the history of the school. The upper image is the playroom, and again, using the wood from the bleachers as wall on the walls. And also here you see the seats from the auditorium. And we thought this would be a nice feature to potentially be used as acoustical panels or potentially some lighting behind it, just to kind of emphasize and highlight the history of the existing school. So here's some more ideas we were thinking. Again, you see the auditorium seats. We were really trying to think, well, what materials in the school can we disassemble, take apart, and bring into the new school without it being too invasive, but still being able to visually connect. Oh, well, I saw this in my old school. So the lower left image is using the seat as a display for teachers to use educational banners or have stuff that's going on in the school. So as you see in the lower wing of the school, the yellow circles represent where they're placed. And the idea is that you're walking through the hallways and you kind of have that connection with the past and the new while you're in the school. The middle image is the reception desk. So again, bringing the history in, but this way we were trying to think of how can we bring the outside in. So using a panel from the actual wall of the school. So when you walk in, you're greeted at the reception desk, you see the wall of the old school, and it has the brick patterning, and you have that relationship between old and new. And then one of the things that I really liked when I walked in the school, the upper image, they have these banners and they have keywords: respect, integrity, self-reflection. I can't remember all the words, but I thought it was nice that when you walk in, you already have these keywords to kind of set up your day and let you know what your teachers and your community expect, what you should expect of yourself. And it just kind of gives you a fresh start to your day. So how can we bring them in where either we use the existing banners or we interpret it in a new creative way as you walk into the school? So again, just trying to bring some of the existing school into the new school.
And so these are just two axonometric or isometric views of the school from the top to orient you a little bit. Does this have a little red light? I don't know. No, I don't think so. In any case, I think you can kind of orient yourself. The longest piece is the longest piece of the classroom wing that faces what I call the wetlands. It's the little stream. And the shortest end is the piece that has the cafeteria, kitchen area in it, and then all of the kind of the back of house boiler room and mechanical spaces in it. And then the middle wing in there is another classroom wing. So these are just two kind of bird's eye views of the school. And this is just another same rendering, just without circles all over. It might be a little bit easier to see. And so the program, just to recap for you, the student capacity is 400. This is something we've seen before, but I just as a reminder, the student capacity is 466. The core is for 600 students. It has 31 teaching spaces, and it's 74,488 square feet. And where we are with our schedule. As I mentioned, we finished schematic design this summer, and we're turning in design development drawings on Monday. And we are completing demolition drawings for the existing campus by October 3rd. We should have 60% construction documents for review ready at the end of November, and construction documents ready for the CMAR to take and put their packages together and put on the street for bidding February 13th, 2024.
And then the projected timeline for construction, about
So-
18 months or less.
I will let Barnhill answer those questions.
Okay.
So not to cut you short, because they have a slide and I can't remember what it says.
Okay.
I didn't know if there were any questions, or if you wanted them to go ahead and present their information, and then we just open up there. It's your pleasure, what you would
Okay.
prefer.
Ms. Barnes?
I have a question, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we go. I was looking at the rendering of the entire building, and just, I know it's just a rendering of it, but the blandness of it, the brick would be not decided upon yet? If you go
Yes,
back.
ma'am. So we're at the end of design development, so we're using brick and metal panels. But the color of the brick, the patterning of the brick, all of that is what is yet to be determined and what we're working on. And so when we were speaking about, this slide is where we will begin to talk about what the color is, what some of the patterns may be that are brought into it. Maybe there's some pilasters as well that sort of begin to articulate it. So yes, you are correct. It is very bland at this point, and purposefully so, because we need to study these things very carefully, make sure that it works well. So we still have a good ways to go with, making it, I would call more intimate and more special.
Could I add something, Alicia? There isn't a direct correlation between the white of our render and the white of the school. It's just a matter of giving you guys the idea of the massing of the school. So there isn't details we're still defining our
Right.
details.
Right.
I noticed the brick on one of the ones that you circled were grayish looking, it's the,
Right.
And then
So
you
it
have
has
the
nothing to do with the
font.
color and just the pattern.
just the.
Just the
okay,
pattern. It just
projection.
happens to be that your existing school's painted white.
Right,
If we were to show this to anybody else and they had a red school, we would still be showing them a white one at this point.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
yes, it does.
Okay.
Can we look at the very next slide?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, this thing just keeps flying on me.
That's okay. That one.
Okay, so-
Where you have taken the bleachers and you incorporate that into a feature wall, and the same at the upper rendering. Will there be anything that denotes to the general public the historical significance of that feature wall if you're going to use the?
We can do something like that. We could have something either in the office. There has also been, that's kind of separate from the architecture discussions about, do they have something in the media center that's kind of maybe a computer or something where you can go and find out about the history of the school? That would be separate. But I think architecturally, that is something we need to explore if we're going to incorporate these things. Some kind of signage nearby that lets folks know, a little bit of the history of the school and why these things were brought in, because these are we're trying to bring in pieces that work from the parts that, seem to speak the most to the community.
And because we may be long gone.
Right.
When somebody else comes and looks at this, I think that it's important because you are putting in the historical features, that something like that would be
Right.
important.
Yes, ma'am.
Other members?
If I may,
Ms. Powell?
Madam Chair, at the meeting, the new meeting we had back
Yes, ma'am.
at 8:30, that was something that was discussed. The people that were there, they wanted some type of historic, which some type of historic remembrance or something in the building, the bleachers or just something, because the people that were there, they were talking about, like you said, they burned off the actual ground to play ball, and they talked about Coach Reed, and they had a lot of good memories that they actually experienced, and how their mother or grandmother attended that school also. So it would be great, and I think as much history as you can possibly put into this school, they really would appreciate anything at all, because people are asking, you know, what, can we have like bricks and things like that we
Right.
can have to remember from Frederick Douglass.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's perfect.
I appreciate those points, and thank you for bringing them up, because of we need to think through how we can present that is lasting in a good spot. Does that make sense? So I do think that is something we need to think through to make sure it's where it's
Madam
placed.
Chair,
and
one
what's
more
appropriate.
question.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes, ma'am.
You kept referencing the gym. So the gym will remain,
No, ma'am.
okay?
The gym will not remain. We are trying to reuse the bleacher. The pieces of wood in this rendering on the screen are the pieces of wood from the bleachers themselves.
Well, tell me again where the gym is gonna be located in this
So in
schematics.
this plan, I wish, does anyone know if there's a red pointer on this?
Is
No?
there a
Okay.
laser point?
In this plan, you see
Where the taller section is?
the taller section, there's a little oval.
Yes.
The top one does? Oh, there it goes. I just don't want to poke anybody in the eye. It doesn't work on those screens.
Yeah, you can't see it to know.
Yes.
It's the very top where it
Yes.
says play area,
Okay.
and that's the area that is going to be what one would consider a gym. It's a multi-purpose room. So
Okay.
kids can play basketball in there, they
Okay.
have their PE classes in there. Can be a place where you have a little play or presentation, there's a small platform in one end of it, so you can have student performances or, you know, community events in that space. And it opens up into the dining or cafeteria area behind it, so those two flow in and out from each other for larger events or school functions.
And I agree that lighting is key, because that's one of the attractions at the Watt. People have talked about, those that have visited, just how bright it is with the lighting that we have. So it's important to me that it has really, really good lighting.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Boykin?
One thing that I'm a little bit interested in,
Yes, ma'am, sir.
and it probably doesn't have to be discussed right now, but is there any way that we could potentially put like a lighted sign out at the road that couples with the sign that we've got? That we can put like messages on that says, you know, maybe report card pickup tonight, or,
I don't see why there would be an issue with that. We'd need to make sure that we can do it, you know, in terms of zoning, but I don't think that there's any problem in Elm City with that. So that's a good note we need to make for that. I do, that's always helpful.
I mean, that's just
Especially
my
for
opinion. I
parents.
don't know that everybody else
Oh,
would
yeah.
agree with it, but, yeah, any way that you can get in touch with the parents.
Right.
I will say that the staff did mention that they asked for a digital marquee.
Okay. Wish all had it.
Other questions or points?
Chair.
Mrs. Boyette?
I love the chairs from the auditorium and music. That is the one of the most unique little things that I've ever seen, but I
Well, thank
love
you.
that
The wood
idea.
is so pretty, and I think it could be something that looks really interesting on the wall, so thank you.
And the history that, you know.
Right, right.
It's like a mini museum for me, when I look
Okay.
at using the bleachers and that kind of thing. So, thanks, that's good.
Are there any other questions or concerns or responses or things that you'd like for us to remember or make sure that? I think we've had some very, very good response, very good feedback. That's very helpful for us.
I'm just excited and getting more so to be coming upon the time for demolition. So that means that we are really in the process. And I know it's a process and it's not overnight, and that's fine. It's getting to be real exciting.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate being here tonight. I'm going to turn, Dr. Mills, do you have something else?
Is this a good spot to share with the board where you might extend the building? One of the things the commissioners asked about
Yes.
was, from a design standpoint, how could you extend this at a later time? That's something that wasn't discussed, but I think it's important for them to understand where that is and what limitations are now before we get into next steps.
Hi, I'm Brad Farlow, and it's good to be here. I thought I was going to get to talk earlier, but that's fine. No, honestly, you did great. No. So if you look in the front of the building, I wish this thing would point, but as the carpool lane comes in, somebody's pointing. Oh, thank you. As the carpool lane comes in, and there is some extra space right in the very front of that first wing you come to. Yeah, that wing, but on the left of that. Further left. So right out in front of that building, we can add on in that direction, probably at least 4 classrooms. We could also add 2 classrooms on the back side of that wing. So, and then, so we're thinking we can add at least 6 classrooms. So that's like a whole grade level worth of students or more. So that is our plan for adding on.
Okay.
Any other questions? And we're planning the core, as I said, as Alicia said, for 600. So that will already be taken care of in the cafeteria and the gymnasium and the media center. So
And so whatever add-on would not disrupt anything that's already laid out in the plan.
it won't really disrupt it. What it will do is it will cause you to need to rearrange where the student, which is first grade and which is second grade. That will probably need redistributing, but other than that, it should work out pretty well. So, and we're really excited, and I'm going to turn it over to Barnhill now so that they can
Thank you.
talk to who's talking.
Buried down in there.
Need pages on it.
I know.
Can you, yeah, that's it.
While they're getting that set up, let me tell you a funny story. When we
You get the
tore down
fun-
Rotten
The
Ridge,
fun part.
and, everybody wanted bricks, and so I went up there and we picked up wheelbarrow loads of bricks, and me thinking this was, and then there comes the matter of getting the cement, the
off.
mortar off of them, and I thought, that would, and I called brick mason and said, how do you do this? It won't come off. There is no easy way to get mortar off of bricks.
Well, if they want a brick, then they get the mortar along with it. Hey,
That's just more issue. Very true. Now, back in the early 1800s, early 1900s, they would lime mortar, you could get that off with no problem. But when Portland cement was introduced in the 1930s, or late 20s, early 30s, that all ended. So what you're saying is very true. You might get lucky and it might come off, but it might stick on there like you'll never get it.
I spent days
So-
with a
so it's-
screwdriver and a,
So unlike when we sat out with my relatives and shelled beans and some of you out there with a little pickaxe just knocking the stuff out on the weekend.
Well, my dad was a brick contractor, and he used the chisel method, and we used to get mortar off all the time, old bricks.
I should
It
come.
wasn't
There's your concept.
Yeah, chisel.
well, I would suggest that anybody who gets any of those bricks be told, you deal with the mortar along with the brick.
As is.
Happy-
As
and it
is.
Well,
as is, or you get a piece of a brick, because the demolition
Most of it's
tore the
block.
bricks up. So,
Could they be used in the garden? How you buy bricks? The Roundhouse did that, and then he used them in a special way to put around borders of flowers. Is that too messy to think about something like that, to use some of them in the garden area?
Right now, we've got a request for some bricks. I think we're gonna run out.
Oh, really?
I think that you would end up with the same issues that everyone's been discussing about trying to get the
Trying to get
mortar
it
off
off.
the brick. So if you have some industrious folks who would like to participate in that activity, then, and, you know, and
welcome
there's a
to it.
place for them, but
Well,
I
we
think
count
asking the
that.
contractor.
Could I recommend a chair for that committee?
Can you recommend who?
I'm recommending Ms. Boyette's chair that committee.
Somebody with some experience.
I thought you were saying you were recommending me. I was just saying, I'm welcome.
It's a $13 million difference between what we got and what's gonna cost.
A little different.
Well, good evening.
Good evening, good afternoon.
Yeah, this is interesting.
It's a very nice design. It's a nice school. It really is going to be a nice school. So my name's Joey Wilkins. I'm with Barnhill Contracting and Pre-Construction Department. And so I'm just going to kind of go through where we're at right now. Of course, they've shown you they're going into DD, but this is based on a schematic design that we estimated, I don't know, maybe in 2 months ago. So we were asked to put a early demo abatement and phase one site estimate together. So what you're seeing here is that phase one estimate. So we're in the pre-qualifications phase right now for the demo and the site for phase one. We started that about a week ago, so we've got a couple to 3 more weeks left of that to be able to pre-qualify subs for bidding it. And Kerry here in a minute, he'll go through the schedule a little bit more. But this is an estimate, and hopefully, of course, the bids come in, we're able to go and save a little bit of money on that estimate. It is a schematic design number, so we're hoping that when we actually get the demo documents and the abatement report, and we send that out to the subs for bid, we get better numbers. But the second number here is a phase two breakout, and that is the $37,144,000. We're a total of $39,537. And we got in the parentheses here that we did a third-party estimate and reconciled with that group. That was the architect actually hired that third-party estimator, so they were about 38, almost 39 million. So we were really, really close at SD to be considered reconciled with a third-party estimator. So that's where we're at right now. We are carrying a little bit of escalation on this within that 39 million. We have seen the market stabilize in the last 8-9 months since January. So hopefully we'll see maybe even a decline with the interest rates raising. It's helped out the public sector quite a bit. So with that, I'll open it up for questions, comments.
I have a question about the demolition. Now, does that amount include, of course, I know what the demolition part is, but does it go as far as preparing the land for the construction process?
Good question. Yeah, so it's got the abatement, the demo, and it's bringing back in soils to get it a rough grade, and it's got the erosion control, and we've got the early approval for the phase one erosion control plans from the civil engineer. So it does include portions of getting it up to grade.
Other questions? Mr. Borkin?
What, of the new school construction, what have you got in there for contingency?
So we're carrying, Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was 2.5% for,
It's 2% for pre-con and 3%.
okay, it was a total of 5, but yes. And then we do have our construction contingency, which is carried forward into construction for any issues that arise. So I believe the dollar figure for that would probably be around 1.2, well, I got it right here. About $1.3 million worth of escalation and pre-con contingency. And again, these are schematic, you know. Now that we're getting DD, I believe next week, we'll be able to get more participation from the market and get updated prices and if everything goes well, hopefully we're able to save a little bit of money and come down some. But overall, I don't think the current design, the current scope is really not going to fluctuate much more than 10% in our opinion.
Other questions? Okay.
Any more questions right now? I'll let
They're
Carrie
silent right
get
now.
aimed at for a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm used to it, Brad's already got me.
Good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Kerry Walker, Barnhill Contracting, Project Manager. Worked on the Watt project as well. Just a few side notes. We talked about brick early on. We already are planning to have 3 or 4 pallets of bricks we're gonna save and try to get as much mortar off as we can. And we'll open that up to the public to let them come on a weekend or some days or whatever to get those bricks or whatever. We'll set it up or whatever. We'll get with Ben and Greg and whoever to get it set up for the community to come out there and, you know, look around. And we'll still be fenced off and everything, but we'll make sure they can come look or whatever before demo or right after demo, and then they can get bricks and, you know, have memories of the building. So,
Just make sure it's first come, first served. And
we
because
can allocate a few if you want to.
somebody might want 3 or 4, but, you know, they've only asked for so many, and, you know, when the wrecking ball or whatever comes along, some of the bricks may be damaged.
Depends on how hard Miss Boyd hits with that hammer when she's knocking that mortar off.
Okay.
All right, so like Joey said, right now we're in a pre-qual stage of the project. We started that in September and that goes through October. We're looking at the early package for the demo, bidding it out on November the 6th, which is realistically right around the corner, about 6 weeks from now. Starting demo November 14th of this year. So that process right there is about 2.5 months of construction time. Then the bid time for the actual main portion of the project will be in March of '24. Start construction May of '24, 16-month duration for a total of 18.5 months, 18 months for the total. Then we'll be finishing up in September of '25. So it looks like it's gonna be a mid-year move-in with the furniture and everything, but those dates can all shift and change with whatever we have. So that's what we're looking at on schedule right now. And all that's fluid on design, site, all kinds of stuff, but that's where we currently look right now.
Now, when you say early demo bid of 11/6, is that for the opening, or that's when the bid process goes out?
No, it's for opening.
For
So
the
at that,
opening,
yes.
okay.
So at that time right there, we'll know who our low bidder is and, you know, open up the conversations with them, and then we'll have to get the approval by the board or whatever, but that's where it starts right there.
So it's only a week between the opening of the bid and the demo starting?
Best case scenario, giving you
Okay.
the best case.
Okay, all right.
But again, like I said, I mean, if it doesn't get approved, if there's something there, I mean, it could shift or whatever, but I'm trying to get in there before the holidays and everybody wants to start scattering in the permit office and all that kind of stuff. So trying to be proactive here, I mean, so if it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll back up and punt and figure out what our best date is,
Okay.
so.
Sounds good.
That's fast.
Not a problem.
All right. So, where are we?
Right now, you're at the point where you have information I can take back to the county manager, but you're at two different points. The county commissioners have allocated $27 million, and the number you're looking at there is $39 million.
About $2 million short.
So,
Us.
We got a shortfall. But that's out of our hands.
so I need
Could you ask them pretty please to give us $40 million to complete this project?
my pretty please skills have run out, I think. But I do think, you know, I think you've got information that I can go back and share with the county manager, but I do think you know, that's the next step. But you need to have discussion about that today to decide what it is that you want to say or do next. The demolition part is important. The building is empty. I mean, we did everything we need to do to get the building empty, get moved in, and be ready. And so that's done. But there's obviously gonna be a gap between those two numbers. And you've got a design and you've got information, so I think the next step is a conversation.
Well, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. They usually do correct me, and I'm frequently wrong, I reckon, but it appears to me that we're building a school that's comparable to what we've been building. I don't see a lot of fluff as far as overbuilding, or it's certainly, we don't want something so bland and plain it looks like barracks at a military base or something. We want to have a school design that we can be proud of, and I think that's been provided. So to me, I'm in favor of you sharing what we've learned today, that if we're going to have a building for those students and a school for those students, that they can use and be beneficial to them, and the county and both the commissioners and the board can be proud of. The price tag is noticeably above $27 million, and share with them what it is.
And I also think it's important that they remember that originally, the estimate for this project was 50 million. They asked us to get it down, work on getting it down. We worked on getting it down to the figure it's at now.
And we changed the number of
And we changed
students.
the capacity number to fit less students. So we're moving. We're doing what we can to try to meet them where they are, but the hope would be that they come up to meet us as well.
I did put some information here for everyone's memory. You know, we've submitted for the needs-based capital funding, and that's not been approved twice.
Right.
And the commissioners have indicated they would like for us to submit again. They have, Dr. Williams and I have checked, there is no posting as of yet for the new application. I don't think there'll be anything out there until they pass a budget at least, which that's being delayed.
The building will be gone by then.
So we don't know when that will be as of the last couple of days. So I don't know what the status of that is. But we have, you have gone back from 650 to 520, adjusted the number of students. I know that the architects have adjusted the project down to the point where they feel like this is the design that meets the needs of what you're gonna, would be required, and is the envelope of the building that they feel most comfortable with at that size, and it is scalable. Barnhill has indicated they can go ahead and start on the demolition and be ahead of that, but again, you do not have funding to do anything until we can't start demolition until the county gives us funding and approves the project. So the time frame is nice, but as far ahead as we are, we have made arrangements and saved funds and been very frugal and I think smart to relocate Frederick Douglass to the former Tourist Nut site. We've invested some of our own funds there to retrofit that, so we're not spending on land or mobile units, which would be exorbitant, and other temporary, quasi-temporary things for the time being. So that was a help to everyone, and then can serve us down the line, but you still got a gap between those things. But my concern is that we need to have a conversation quite soon and come to a decision quite soon, no matter what that is, because the window for getting in on the demolition piece with a empty building just sitting out there is gonna cost us time on the back end. So you're gonna see the design again as we go through, but the first is, you know, again, we didn't have the means to go forward and do anything until there's an approval between the commissioners and the board.
Now, these folks can tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, and too, but it appears that if, with the schedule they've got, if we were to be fortunate enough, weather, building supplies available, and everything, if we could go ahead and get started with the date being in September, there would be a slight chance we could get ahead of schedule and open school there. A slight chance. But if there's much delay, it's guaranteed it won't happen.
A slight chance of opening school, even with everything lined up now, is no. There's
Well,
no way. They
Look,
were
maybe
dead.
I'm just an optimist and wishing real hard.
As good as they were and dead on the money as they were on what, which they were dead on the money.
And time.
And time and everything. I'm telling you, if they say, they've already ruined my bubble by saying, in your movie, and Dr. Williams and I have been looking at furniture and everything else, so, yeah, we'd love to do that earlier, but there's no way.
Well,
There's no way.
You know, just
It'd have to be like
don't shoot
July.
me for having wishful thoughts.
Maybe we change the calendar.
Well, we all have wishful thoughts, and at our joint meeting that we had, they said, give us a plan, and we'll give you the money.
Give us a budget.
Give us a budget, we'll give you the money. We've made the plan, we set the budget, we looked at the cost, we've presented it. We can't make the next move without them, because they control the finance. So,
My opinion is, Madam Chair, that Skinner, Curran, and Farlow have done what we've asked, so has Barnhill. And I think they've done a great job. I commend Joe, wish I was an architect, could do those kind of things. So now we are at the place where we need to just go to the county commissioners and lay it out on the table and just see where we go from there. Because there's nothing else we can do until we get the funding.
Does that need to be in the form of a formal motion to direct Dr. Mills to do something, or what do we need to formalize that?
Do we have any plans to meet with them anytime soon?
I've got it on the last slide, the conversation I had with Mr. Hunt, the county manager, is that, you know, again, we were gonna wait until the state budget was passed before we would bring the two boards together, and that is being delayed as we speak. So, but again, some of that is best to do once the budget has passed, because there's some things we wouldn't know until then. But he and I are meeting on a regular basis and in between, so.
Has he, excuse me, Dr. Mills, has he been in the presence of the architects to know?
They've
what
had
it
some,
really-
they've had some representation at a couple of the meetings, or at least one I know of. But at this point, I plan on meeting with him tomorrow to go through this information, because I've not shared this out because it hasn't gone to the board yet. So I plan on meeting with him late tomorrow morning to go through everything and share it anyway. So I have no problem sharing with him so he could share with commissioners on that behalf.
well, I think that your conversations with Mr. Hunt may bode well, but Mr. Breen and saying, or whoever it was said, directing Dr. Mills, I think that we do need to have that sit down with both the boards, and we have to be as vocal as a board and as individuals on the board because of the directive that started this whole process. And we have handled part of it. We have other parts yet to go, but we have already shifted the community, prepared them for there being a new school, and we need to make good on what that is, and we cannot do that until they give us funds or the commitment and the go-ahead to go with whatever it is we need to do. So my sentiment is that hopefully the budget will be passed soon and very soon, and that we can go forward with whatever we need to. Yes, we have already applied twice for funding for the needs-based. And even if you make that submission, you have to wait for a decision to be made, which slows down this timeline that we're given yet again because we don't know when the expected timeline would be. And when we have submitted for the needs-based funding, even though there were timelines given, they were usually late in meeting that deadline and announcing who was being awarded funds. This is of utmost importance and urgency that we really get an answer to this question, because otherwise, we're gonna keep sitting here and meeting and discussing, and we haven't moved an inch from where we were. And so I'd like for us to get together, if you all are willing to do that, sooner than later, if that is the pleasure of the board.
What is the purpose of waiting for the budget to come out?
I think there were some, just typically, it finalizes some of the questions about overall finances and what's available to them and their planning and our planning. I mean, it's just typical. But again, it's usually not as late as it's been the last several years either, so.
I mean, I think that we need to get together with them as soon as possible. And I would even go so far as to say that we probably ought to go ahead and start scheduling 2 meetings annually when we schedule our board meetings. Just go ahead and have a calendar where we know we've got joint meetings. Because I think we could have put some of this to rest earlier this year had we had a joint meeting. I mean, we could have gone ahead and addressed the $27 million budget then, instead of we're in the 9th hour and we got to talk about it now.
Well, I think we did have some of that conversation the last time we met, and we were told that the funding would not be what was initially talked about. And when they came up with the 27 million, I think it was based on asking us to alter the numbers, alter design, and that was the conversation that they gave, was that this was what would be available to us. But even in reducing the numbers that we originally started out with, and we reduced it significantly, we still have this high budget amount. And I don't know that we can get any lower than this and get around this. But this is something that we have done in good faith based upon their original ask of us to reevaluate our utilization. And we've gotten to this point.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Ms. Powell?
Are we going to apply again for the needs-based grant? I know we've done it twice and we failed, but are we going to try it for a 3rd time?
Dr. Mills, I think that's addressed to you.
The commissioners have indicated they would like for us to. I mean, again, we've been through twice and cycled through it and not been successful. There's no harm in us applying. It doesn't cost us anything. There's no penalty for applying and not getting funding. Project is different at this point than it was, but I wouldn't count on the funding. I think that's been the trend. So I'm not particularly positive that it's a strong application for whatever reason, circumstances, just generally. Maybe it will be now, but you know, I'm not good at the lottery either. I'd be on my private island, so. But I think, you know, again, that's a conversation that's been had from the commissioners. They would like for us to apply again. There's no harm in doing that, but because we are a Tier 1 county, so the matching part for us is good, and so. But again, by the time that comes out, it's going to be a little bit, because I think it is delayed, and I've been checking that just about every 2 weeks. So.
I know things do change, and that's always one of
Yeah, but
she said, but
I'm not very, you know, I think ours, we were a tier one county, we had other things in there, and the randomness of the things that were approved last time made no sense. When we went back and looked at the pattern of what did and didn't get approved, it didn't make good sense, but that's just my opinion. It's not a professional, review.
Well, I'd like to thank both entities, Skinner, Barlow Kerwin, and Barnhill for continuing to be flexible with us and working with us in trying to get this resolved. And hopefully, soon and very soon, we can, because right now it just seems like we're going round and round in circles, and we don't have the answer. They have presented to us their best renderings, and so they're in the quandary with us. We don't have the funds to let, and they're waiting as well, so.
So, I will formally present this to the county manager, to the county commissioners, the project for Frederick Douglass, as presented.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can I just add one additional thing that might be helpful for the county commissioners and to put in front of them? I think it might be important for them to know how much other projects, similar projects have cost other school systems in the last couple of years. For example, Durham Public Schools is building a new elementary school at the price tag of $39.6 million. Greensboro Claxton Elementary School was a $50 million project, and down in Onslow County, they're building a new elementary school for $44 million. I think it's important for them to know that elementary schools aren't being built for $27 million.
I'll be glad to get some comparative data if you'd like from the architects in Barnhill, if you.
Be a daisy if you did.
Sure.
I happen to have seen some figures from eons ago. What a school was built for, long time ago, that's long time ago. And there's no way, and the expenditures that were allocated for refurbishment and everything else was, when you look at.
Well, it's because of that newfangled
12,000.
mortar they've been using on those bricks that last forever.
That
Can't
that
get it
makes
off
the
without a
difference,
hammer.
yeah. It-
How long,
it's the
when was
price.
Jones built?
Jones,
Finished in about 2007, wasn't it?
2000, yeah, you moved in early, mid, might have been 2008.
7 or 8, right around there.
7, I think, finished in 8.
Mm-hmm.
Because even back then, that was over 20 million then, I think.
I think, Jones was right at, 15, the construction cost, I believe, was 15 something, perhaps, maybe a little higher than that. Might have been upwards toward, not quite 20, I think, but it was somewhere in that area. That was 15 years ago. And I think that the construction costs of the last 3 years have gone up tremendously. If you go to the, the public construction used to update their website on construction costs and track the schools that were bid in North Carolina. They haven't really updated it. 2020 is really the last list of schools. And I think the average square foot then was 240 to 280. So
That's what,
that was a million.
now it's
And that was
470 or something?
20.
440, 470?
And now, the projects that we're seeing and the ones that he just described really are probably running you 440 to 480. And so, it's hard for, we have, it's just, we are, we don't know the rising cost of everything, construction is, it's hard to comprehend, really, to be honest with you, and the reasons why, but it is tremendously gone up the last, 2021, 2022, really, or the, you know, where it really went sky high. Barnhill may address some of the reasons why, I'm not sure, but that's just some of the data that if you go look at the history of square footage of schools.
A lot of it's been sub-capacity. Subs have been so busy that the numbers have shot up.
Can't get them.
That's why I think the faster we bid this job out, the better we're gonna be, because when this budget passes, all this public money's gonna go, and you're gonna see a lot of subs getting.
Hitting it.
All right.
That's a good point to make with the budget.
All right, I'll handle that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Then the next items we have are to follow back up on the security vestibules and the auditorium renovations. Science labs were your priority, but they are so cost prohibitive right now that we're focusing on the vestibules and the auditorium renovations. And the first iteration was just if we did everything, and then, so now we've gone back to ask to look at the reduction in cost, because that was, the first thing was, what would it take? Now, okay, what would it take if you just did minimum to get you back up to some level of better functionality and some things that need improvements? So, the architects from Skinner, Farlow, and Kerwin have those items in their presentation as well to walk us through, and that's information also that you need to review and give me some guidance on about next steps to take back to the commissioners or not. There is some money set aside for additional capital projects from the commissioners a while back, but again, that's a discussion piece that needs to take place.
Okay.
So, Linda, you will swap theirs out? There you go. Or Ben, sorry.
It looks like Fike's numbers are a lot better.
Hi, Alicia Kerwin again. This will be a little bit more brief. As Dr. Mills did explain, we went back to the drawing board and worked with your facilities folks in ways that we could try to make this a little bit more appealing and yet still provide the security necessary for these. So this is just a reminder, this is what Fike looks like now and what Hunt looks like now. So with Fike, we're at about 65% complete with design. We sent that design out for a third-party cost opinion. This is the one that changed the most. This is the one where originally, in order to try to get to the administration area, we were reorganizing the principal's office and their bathroom, and it was quite extensive what was going to need to happen. But the facilities folks have indicated that there's a small little closet, if you will, that we're repossessing to use for a security desk where someone can sit there during busy times of the day or even all day. There's enough room for a work surface there to be the check-in area. And so that really helps reduce a lot of the cost by relooking at how we can accomplish this within the building. And so we have an accessible ramp there and then a whole new building, glazing for the front doors and another set of interior doors. And so that third-party cost opinion came in about $290,000 for this one. So this is where I think this one originally had been over $400,000. So we're not having to rework plumbing, those kind of things. We do have all new storefront on both pieces, both the exterior and the interior set of doors. There's a new opening there into that office, a window opening, so it can be opened or closed, so folks can check in there and be seen. A new countertop, and then obviously a new ramp and rails. And these new little vestibules do require conditioning, so there's some modifications to the HVAC and lighting to accomplish this in this space. And then the Hunt secure vestibule. We did look at this. We looked if there were ways to reduce the number of doors that we actually needed, but I will tell you that when I did an initial evaluation of the occupancy of the building and the way that it's evaluated for the building code, determined that we needed all of the doors. So you have to do a whole, if you decide to reduce the exiting out of a building, then you'd have to show the fire marshal and your approving AHJ that you haven't reduced safety. And when we did those calculations, we recognized that you needed all of these doors. So we have all of them. So this is a whole new set of doors at the front and a new set of doors interior. Again, some changes to HVAC and lighting, obviously in the space because it's enclosed. And then a new wall and desk where someone can sit and monitor those who are coming and going and also work there as necessary. So this, again, we are at about 65% complete with this and sent it out for a third-party cost opinion. And it came back at $202,000, basically close to 203. So that's where we are with the vestibules at this point. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Brad? Or Ben, did you need to say anything?
Third party was Barnhill, wasn't it?
Yes.
So Joey, who was spoke, I think that group was that was the third party that did a complimentary kind of whatever, cost analysis of the information they had. Is that right on this?
Yes. Yeah, so they were sent basically 65% construction drawings. All right. I can move on to the auditoriums, or I can stay here with the vestibules.
Let's see if there are any questions.
Yes,
in
ma'am.
regard. Any questions in regard to the Fike as well as Hunt vestibule security? Refresh my memory, if you can, the original cost estimate for Hunt as compared to, they were all about the same, were they not?
The Hunt is approximately, it's a little lower, I believe. The Fike is significantly lower because of the
Right, but-
change in design.
When you say, was that about 300,000 for Hunt, or was that?
Hunt previous, I think, was around 250. I'm
250.
sorry, I did not bring my
That's
previous
okay.
report with us.
I'm sorry,
I think,
don't
Dr.
recall.
Williams, do you have that breakdown? I believe there's a chapter that's just cost, and it might be on that page. I don't know where that is in the book. I think you were closer to a Ford.
On your guesstimate, it was about 250, so it would be about 48,000 savings and about 110,000 savings on.
Yeah, I would say the significant savings was in the Fike because the design significantly changed. And again, these are cost opinions. This is not bid at this time, but this is just an opinion. The original opinions were generated through our office based on, what we've seen, and then having Barnhill take a look at it. They have more modern, more recent numbers. They see numbers every day for construction, so asking them to do it helps.
Okay.
Did you find it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Fike High School, the initial cost estimate for security vestibule was $403,613. And security vestibule cost estimate for Hunt originally was $249,863.
Significant. Okay. Other questions in regard to the vestibules? Okay. So the next was the auditorium?
Auditoriums, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So the last time we met, we had talked about the auditoriums, And since then, we have met with facilities, and they asked us to please look at, the cost, and did we really need to add a sprinkler system to to at least the auditorium portion? Our interpretation of the code was very conservative, and we believed that we needed to add one. This morning, we've actually had conversations for a while, and they really requested some diagrams, so we've created those diagrams and sent them to them. And this morning, we received the answer that, in fact, the sprinkler is not required. Sometimes the code will have words, and you can interpret them more stringently or less stringently. And so this DOI responded that the sprinkler was not required in any of these because we are not increasing the capacity of the auditorium. And what we're trying to do is create accessibility, and we are not reducing any of the exits. So we've not reduced any ability to exit the auditorium. So we do not have updated cost at this time because we just received that information, but we will be going back and trying to provide that updated cost as soon as possible. But what we do have is we just have some diagrams of what we're suggesting at the auditoriums in terms of the floor plan. So at the bedding field, we can have accessible ramps down both sides of the auditorium, and those would exit out each side. I think what's nice about having these ramps is they also improve a secondary accessible path for someone who's in the building. So I think that's actually an improvement to exiting for them in this particular case.
So the yellow on both of these floor plans is a rampway?
Yeah, and it's also just showing where we have changed the plan a little. So at bedding field, you go in those doors into kind of that vestibule for the auditorium, but there aren't any other doors. So if you're opening the door and your cell phone rings or you're talking to your friend and somebody happens to be performing on stage, everyone in the audience can hear you. So having a vestibule or double doors is really helpful. Someone can open or the noise out in the
Open lobby.
open lobby just bleeds right in. So by putting in another set of doors that are opening in the path of egress, we continue the safety, but also create that quieter vestibule area where somebody can make sure they're getting quiet and then enter, and it doesn't allow that bleeding noise to come through. So the yellow pieces were also an indication just for the code official, so she would understand what we were changing.
And so if a sprinkler system is not required, then that would have a significant savings.
It does have a very significant savings, yes, ma'am, and we don't want to predict what that is
Right.
until we can go back and plug the numbers in, because it trickles down, then you have less contingency of, less overhead, so there's more than just a little bit of a line item for the sprinkler system.
Okay. Ms. Barnes?
Does that mean you're taking away some of the chair spaces?
Yes, ma'am. So we do reduce the amount of seating in these spaces. And I can't see the numbers. But maybe you can read them on your plan. So we did reduce the seating capacity in each of these. I will say that in Fike, we tried to reduce as few because we know that that's your largest auditorium in the county. Any other questions for this one? I have diagrams for each. We have diagrams for each of them. I'll move on to Fike, which is the one we just mentioned. So at Fike, there's really only on one side that we can use because the other side directly exits to the outside, so we don't want to block that exit. This actually improves things a little bit for circulation because you did have to go out the door and then up some steps. So now there's a corridor right there. You can enter directly onto the stage. So in this particular one, there will be a ramp from the back down to the front with some modified stairs. I believe the seat count is reduced, but we really tried to reduce it as little as possible in this particular instance, as I mentioned. And then,
Yes.
sorry.
Yes, help me understand what you said about changing the steps, because that was of concern. At Fike, it's hard getting up and down the stairs, and you're telling me that this changed it.
Yes, ma'am. In Fike, you can come and you can walk down the yellow path, because that's
Uh-huh.
accessible, so anybody in a wheelchair, or you can walk down that path and you'll be right on stage. At that place right there where he has the cursor, if you'd walked out those doors previously, you'd have to climb up some stairs to go on into the corridor of the school. Well, now, that corridor happened to be at the same level as the stage. So now when you walk out those doors, we'll raise that floor a little bit right there, and you'll be right in the corridor of the school. So the other benefit is that you have something happening in the school and you just need to get on stage, or you're lining up kids. It's a little bit more direct for you to be able to carry out functions that way too. It kind of gives another kind of backstage, if you will. It's a beautiful backstage. You have a lot of space here, but it's just another, I think it's a positive for the use of the space.
And on the Bedingfield one, I noticed the stair, it's curved, or there are ovals up there. Did you do something to change the way you access the stage at Bedingfield as well?
Yes, ma'am. So at Bedingfield, the two yellow pieces where you see the yellow, those are ramps that come from the back. And then, yes, ma'am, the stairs there, it just looks nice. So we're just showing something curved. It fits well in the corners, but, so you could step up when you're down there, or you can come from the back and just walk directly onto the stage. Yes, ma'am. And again, the same with that. When you go out those doors, you'll be on the same level as the corridors outside of the auditorium up there close to the stage.
As we look at Hunt, its configuration is totally different.
Yes, ma'am. So
than
this
the-
is like a black box theater. So what's nice about your schools is that you have about kind of 3 different configurations of stages, which gives you lots of different opportunities within the county. This is a black box theater. There aren't really many changes to this. In order to gain accessibility, we're putting 2 small openings back in the back to get on the stage. So there is not as much here that necessitated changing to the structure specifically for accessibility. So that's good. We'll be taking out a few of the front chairs and adding places where a wheelchair can sit with a companion seating. So again, in this one, the exiting didn't change at all. This is the one that had the least amount of, I would say, changes to it in order to accommodate accessibility. And so not having a sprinkler can, I think, significantly impact this one as well. And again, we'll get to Dr. Williams and Dr. Mills, the price cost for these opinions as soon as we can.
Is the seating in the Hunt one in the middle, is that still movable?
Yeah, what would be down in the middle, yes, ma'am, is still movable so that you could use it as a black box or theater in the round. Yeah, this is a nice flexible theater for you all, for the county.
Yeah, you call it black box in the round because the walls are black, or?
Yeah, typically a theater that's set up like this is called a black box because it is dark and because most of the lighting is above, and so they paint everything black because you can do theater in the round. Yeah, the black box just came, I guess, because of what you need to do to paint everything so that you're not obtrusive. But yeah, it's typically called like a black box. They have one at Barton College, what you call a black box that they built, I don't know, maybe 12, 15 years ago. New black box theater.
That must be Kennedy Theater.
Yeah, the Kennedy. Mhm. So that'd be considered a black box. It's similar.
Yes.
We've got way more seating.
Are there any questions regarding the auditorium updates? So what is necessary for this?
I need the board to direct me to take this to the county manager and present to the commissioners.
All right,
Sounds great.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I heard Mr. Breen, I heard Mr. Mercer. Is that consensus? All right,
I'll get finalized. I referenced that we were waiting on the inclusion of the insurance decision about the need for inclusion of sprinkler systems, so they just got that today. So once we get those updated costs, I can provide that last piece of information to the county, but that first part I can go ahead and do.
All right.
Okay. And, yes, any questions?
We thank you for the presentation to us this evening.
And at this point, we'll switch to the Hunt High School track. And just a few bits of information. I've got Graham Boyd here with PLC Architects to go over some of that. Yeah, Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
History lesson and everything.
So, if you remember, the commissioners asked us to be project ready at the conclusion of the current football season. For those of you keeping score at home, the last possible home playoff game is December 1st. But if they were so inclined and did well, the state championship game is a week later, so they still had to practice. But the playoffs begin November 3rd. So the date of the last regular season game is the 27th, so it could start anywhere between there. So that's what we're looking at. And the commissioners have allocated right under $3 million for the project. So what I wanted Graham to do today was bring you back up and revisit the scope, the timeline, and estimated cost after this time period to see where we are. And this is the information that you need to see, and if there's anything that's changed, we also need to address that.
Thank you, Dr. Mills. Graham Boyd, CPL Architects. Dr. Williams also has a handout for you guys so you can look at it closer. We will try and keep this as brief as possible. This is pretty much a similar presentation that you saw, I believe it was November of last year, right before the county commissioners requested we wait. So I will run through fairly quickly. What we have as far as the scope is, again, Hunt High School has the concession building separate from the restroom building and the sports medicine trainer room in the restroom building. It's a slightly, if I were to compare it back to Beddingfield, which we just wrapped up, it's a slightly more complex project just because the concessions is a separate building, and it's a little bit more of a robust concessions with the fryers, and then the second bathroom in that concession building. This is just a quick update of the elevation. We are doing similar scope to what we did at Beddingfield. We're obviously overhauling the interior of the building or repainting the exterior. The main goal of the architectural changes are to bring in ADA accessibility to the site, which is non-existent right now. So the portion of that gets affected most in the concession building would be those two serving counters. Currently, the serving counters are about 4 feet off of the ground, which is not ADA height, and they are closed with an old plywood shutter. So we're bringing that to ADA height, 32 inches above finished floor for the masonry opening. And then we also are bringing in new metal coiling counter doors to match what we have at Beddingfield as well. As far as the restroom building, we have a similar scope again to Beddingfield. We're proposing new plumbing fixtures, new flooring. We have alternates in here, which you'll see. We're doing the similar idea or concept that we did at Beddingfield. We're getting alternates, so that way when we get the bids, we can present to you some options of, yes, I remember with Beddingfield, we decided it was worth it to go in and actually replace the plumbing fixtures, replace the light fixtures to LED, and upgrade a few other things. This is the exterior of the sports medicine and restroom building. We're just, again, bringing all new paint. We have the alternate for all new site lighting around the building, exterior lighting, and just some signage. And then the other big thing will be bringing an actual concrete sidewalk from the concession building to the ticket booth, to the grandstand, and to the bathroom building. So that way, the entire home side is fully ADA. And looking at the site plan of Hunt, You can see that a majority of the concrete site work is happening from the parking lot to the ticketing booth entrance, and then we have an ADA spectator pad near the home grandstand. Here, because of the site constrictions with that, kind of the drop-off on the lower left-hand side, we are proposing a full gravel path going around to the visitor side, and we do have an alternate for a concrete sidewalk there as well. So we will get a price on bid day to do gravel there or to do concrete going around, which will help kind of stabilize the outside of the track and make sure that we don't have any issues with people getting to the visitor bleachers. The existing bleachers at Hunt are in really good condition. If I were to compare it back to the bleacher condition at Beddingfield. So some of that scope will be a little bit more reduced here at Hunt. We do have, if you look at on the top of the page, the home bleachers, there's an extra set of ancillary grandstand bleachers, and currently they're kind of sitting up on cinder blocks. And so we will be taking those apart, putting in an actual concrete pad and restructuring that to make sure it's safe for visitors. This is just a more detailed look at the track. Again, we're upgrading from a 6-lane to an 8-lane. Okay, so I've actually printed out a full page of the opinion of probable costs that we've gotten from a third party. We've updated. That way you can probably make out the numbers a little bit better than on the spreadsheet. So, as Barnhill said earlier, 2023, we've seen a decent stabilization of costs. Our third-party estimator has essentially said it's about 2% per quarter. Since we were ready to bid this out in December, we had a budget or an estimate of $2.8 million. So again, the county commissioner is at 2.9 as of last December. With a 2% per quarter, we're looking at about an 8% overall, which brings it to about $3.1 million. And so, as I said, we are still, same concept as before, we're still using alternates to bring that number down. So our actual estimate for the base bid is $2.486 million, whereas last December, that number was more like about 2.305, somewhere around there. So it's about an increase of $230,000 to the overall projected estimate of, or opinion of probable cost. And if you take the additional escalation of those alternates, from base bid to base bid, it's probably about $180,000 of escalation in the last year. Looking at the schedule. So one of the things that we are looking at, obviously, is when the football season ends, like Dr. Mills mentioned. The goal and the intent is to have the project bid out, the project contract ready to go, ready to award to the low bidder to get the notice to proceed right at the end of November. That way, if Hunt makes it to the playoffs, they play in the state championship game and win it, then on December 10th, the contractor can start work. Obviously, we want them to wrap up before the end of the summer. We don't want any issues like happened at Beddingfield where there's delays. We want to give every possible opportunity for the contractor to be successful here, and that's why we are trying to push it out to bid as soon as possible. We are ready with 100% set. We've had them ready now since last year. We can go to agency next week, and then we can put the project out to bid at the end of this month with the intent of receiving those bids at the end of October to give bidders plenty of time. Again, as Barnhill said, the way this market is right now with subs and general contractors and their availability, we're trying to give them enough time to bid this out to get as much interest as possible, to get it as competitive as possible. Obviously, to get the best number we possibly can for this project. That's kind of my quick update. I don't want to waste too much time, but any questions I'd be happy to answer for you guys.
You indicated approximately a $230,000 increase because of the delays. Where did Bedingfield come in terms of figures since they are now completed?
Dollar figure wise, Bedingfield finished at 1.706 more or less, so $1.7 million. Again, Bedingfield had only one building for the concession and the bathrooms, so the scope here has some differences, and I do have a document that Dr. Williams will give you guys, or has already given you guys, as kind of a take-home document which explains in thorough detail the scope differences between Bedingfield and Hunt. There are items like the 100-year flood line being really close. I'll go back to the site plan. So on the bottom left side of the track where there's that little creek, I can't read it upside down, but there's a little creek not too far away from the field, and there is a 100-year flood line right there. So there's some issues where the site kind of is tight in there. It was a 6-lane track, it needs to get bigger. There's going to be some additional fill that needs to go into that to make it work. There is a significant drop in elevation from the parking lot to the entrance of the stadium. So there's going to be some more site work concrete going in there. Again, like I said, the concession building has fryers. It has a little bit more complexity to it based on, or compared to Bedingfield. So I do have that document for you guys to review, and it also details out all of the alternates and the approach we're taking to try and keep the base bid in line.
Okay. Board members, do you have any questions?
I look forward to seeing it in July.
I will add that while Bedingfield had some ups and downs along the way, I do think that it is a gorgeous facility. And I mean, it's night and day from going out there before and seeing where it's at now. And I do feel confident that Hunt will be the same. I think it'll be a great, accessible to everybody facility, so.
Are all the lights LED now?
What we are doing for the football field, yes, we have all the LED lights in the design, and then for all of the interior and building lights, we have the alternate for LED, so that way we can get a line item price for that, all to LED.
On the concessions and the restrooms,
Yes, sir.
are we putting new roofs on them?
We are not, I know Mark was able to do new roofs on Bedingfield. Hunt, if I remember correctly, was slightly in better condition, but we kept that scope out, similar to what we did on Bedingfield.
If you had to estimate, how much life do you think those roofs have?
I'd have to go and double check before I say a number like that off the top of my head.
Well, yeah, I just hate to spend $3 million and then, yeah, we start getting roof leaks.
I mean, I can certainly talk to Greg about that and Dr. Williams and come up with a plan on whether or not we want to discuss that as part of the project or do something similar to what we did on Bedingfield where it was separated out and just a one-for-one replacement.
Other questions?
Madam Chair, not a question, but I did attend a football game over at Bedingfield and heard nothing but compliments, and the lighting was outstanding, the concession stands, the bathrooms, the track looked really, really nice. Anyone else have been over there for a ball game?
That's awesome to hear.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Mills?
Okay, just a couple updates and some look back around. If you remember, we talked about the public school building repair renovation funds. We do have funding at present for that, that's coming out. We anticipate $500,000 for the 23-24 school year, and another $500,000 for the 24-25 school year. This usually comes out quarterly. There is no match for that required. There is no expiration on those funds. The projects that are chosen for the usage of those funds must have a pre-planned through the planning section of DPI, but also requires the signatures and approval of both our chair and the chair of the county commissioners. And we talked about a couple of things, but this, Dr. Williams has had a conversation with the folks at DPI with the latest information of the amount that's coming, and I just wanted to touch base about some things that are possibilities, and then get your okay to seek a more formal estimate of the projects and allow us to submit those to DPI and also to the chair of the commissioners and start using some of those funds. So I wanted to share those real quick.
Right.
They cannot be used for certain things. I've provided that to you before. Classroom renovations are the primary part that can be used. So a lot of the things we've been talking about outside, it's like vestibules and auditoriums cannot be used for that, and other type things. So some of the projects we have that we could use ongoing for that would be, I think the renovations at Bettyfield, we cannot use them on the wash clinic upgrades. That's separate funding. But this is one where we can get a more formal estimate and a timeframe, and I think it would be a good project to use some of these funds on, because it is inside the school. It is for classroom space specifically. And that money, we do have money sitting in that fund source right now. Again, separate from what is coming for the school year and in 24-25, so. And so that would be a help to the district to offset some of that spending.
You list the culinary arts program. What would be an estimated timeline for the capability of culinary arts to expand?
Depending on the scope that we, of the project and how much we could utilize from these funds to redesign that cafe and that catering aspect of it and the equipment. Right now, they can use the existing program, so we can use that whole wing pretty much and start the work. We've already started some of the work, but when we begin that's gonna mean we've already ordered some of the equipment as well too. Ben can offer some more of that.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, so what that would encompass would be that entire wing. We've got possibility for culinary arts, and we've got a diagram that Dr. Mills will go through. Game art design as well on one part of that hallway, and then the front part of where wash will go, where Watt used to be housed. That's three different constructions going on at the same time. It's not an issue, it's not a problem, but what we would have to do is, the steps that Dr. Mills has outlined in terms of cost estimate of what we would do. We've already done some pre-work in regards to, those classrooms. Some electrical outlets have been put in. Myself and Mr. Woodard have been meeting with CTE Department, Instructional Services, as well as Ms. Pinnica on what other outlets are going to be needed. And we've had someone involved with us on that as far as the game art design part of that. So be better prepared to give a little bit of a timeline once we were able to get that cost estimate, and then if we were going to be utilizing these funds or where that funding would come from, and we know when we were set to go.
Okay, because it's kind of a musical chairs situation, we took care of Watt, which left space, and now looking to do the reconfiguration for the gaming as well as the culinary arts. So would that then create another shift when culinary arts moves from its current little silo into the new projected? Is there a thought in the work as to how that space would be utilized, or will culinary arts still use that portion that they
No.
have and add to?
They'll move on over.
Totally would move over.
Once that project would be completed for a culinary arts area on that hallway, my understanding in talking with CTE and Dr. Johnson with secondary education is that Foods 1, Foods 2, culinary arts, everything could be taught in that area.
Okay.
My understanding was that they could house all of that right there. Now, as far as that space, speaking to what you were mentioning with that space coming over, there again, another conversation with administration at the school, Dr. Johnson, Mr. Creighton, all of the instructional side of the house on how they'd like to utilize
Okay.
that space.
All right.
I have a question.
Ms.
Where's
Burns?
the location for the in-school cafe? Where will that be?
It would be on that, Linda, or Ben, can you go ahead? On that hall, that's the original Watt wing right there. And as you're facing it, you're facing the school right there. So where it says CTE, that's the bottom of that red line is the front of the school on the road. So all that right through there would be the cafe and the room and all that space through there.
And that would allow for outside traffic to be able
It's
to
got
come
a separate
in
entrance
and
down there at the
utilize-
corner. It's got an entrance down at the end. And again, I'll show you where Wash is up separate. I've tried to pull them off there to the board looking at it like it's all in one project, but Linda's really fast, Ben's really fast with that mouse this time. But I think it's very doable. We are gonna need some funding. We have started preparing to do all that, but I think we're at a point where we need to do the formal estimate, or more formal estimate, and really sink some additional funds into it and plan for it. I think you're looking at surely through the end of the school year by the time we do everything and order equipment and do the work, because while some of the projects may not be as demanding, that one will be, and the Wash one at the end that's on a slide coming up will be very messy.
Okay.
But I'd like to bring back cost estimates and some more kind of rough design pictures, if you will, so you can see what we're talking about doing before you invest in that. But I do think that would be a good use of the funds, because it's an existing project that we're ready to go towards. They're very specific about what it can and can't be used for as well. And again, we know additional funds are coming. So this is money in hand that fits the need.
Any other questions in regard to this particular component for the for the retrofitting or the reuse of the former Watt Hall for culinary arts and gaming?
I think it's good.
I'd like to get the cost estimates from, with real numbers and some design or rough designs, and then if you're okay with that, I'd like to go ahead and take that to the commissioners for approval for the application for the existing funds we have. Again, these are existing funds. There's no match, it's sitting there, and I have been asked about those, and I think this would be a good use of the funds, and we could act quickly on those and get those done
Okay.
during this school year and through summer. So I'll proceed with that.
Other questions?
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. I think next on your list was retrofitting of,
Let me, there's another possibility, and I just want to put this out there. If we're anticipating $1 million between 2024 and 2025 school years from the public school building repair and renovation funds, God almighty, it's a long acronym. And we're using existing PSBRRF funds now for the CTE wing, so that's $800-something, which we would use a good bit of that on that project. So let's say we have $1 million coming that we know are guaranteed. That would go a long way towards starting to address the additions of classroom space on Spate, as we talked about a while back. And again, that would all, these monies, it's the same pot of money, just different years coming through. Doesn't require a match, doesn't have a expiration, but would require the signatures of the county commissioners, chairman, and their buy-in from the commissioners and our buy-in. But that would be a jump start towards paying for that project to increase the capacity at Spate and allow you to look at creating a separate wing, if you will, for an elementary school within a school or a K-8 school. I mean, we do not have hard numbers for the cost of that project, but we would need to get a formal cost estimate, just like we would need to do for the other project, because that needs to be submitted along with the other information to DPI for the approval through the planning. But I think we can do that rather quickly. But I think that would be something you could go ahead and plan on doing. And I think that's a conversation, if the board wants to do this. You don't have to, this is up to the board. But that is planned construction and planned facility management that you have coming over the next 2 years, $500,000 a year that's coming from the lottery funds that is guaranteed to the school system, that would offset some of the county's payment requirements for what you would do to address the facility needs and the consolidation they've asked you to do. So, again, that's just a thought. But that's up to the board, but that would meet the requirements. It does allow for construction and additions, not for temporary kinds of mobile units and things like that, but in this, for what we're talking about, it does meet the standards quite readily. So that was just a thought. But again, part of the planning process is looking ahead, and I think some discussion has been about how you're spending your money, what your plans are, how you're gonna know, are you consolidating? And this would allow you to align funding with the county on a project that is needed, so. But that's up for the board's discussion and decision. You don't have to decide that today, but that is a fund source that I think we now know that money is coming. So that was not available to us last time we met.
and if we have to, if we go with the plan to retrofit and make Spate become a K-8, would we have the same land prep and design and everything that we're doing as we look to build the Frederick Douglass site?
You have as it is right now at Spade, it's built to allow
Yes.
extensions on the side, and the core functions of the building are built to handle additions already on it. So, that's already,
So the basic footprint or plan is already there.
it's scalable, and
because-
it was built, the envelope was built to handle just that situation within reason. You're not gonna add, 18 classrooms and manage it, but for what we're talking about doing and would be bringing back to spec, all that will be checked out. But yes, you could add on, you don't wanna add on 3 wings, and you don't need to, but
Right.
2 wings would be no problem, and there's space to do it, and the internal structures do support that.
Okay.
So I think that's a conversation the board needs to have very much sooner than later. And again, that's a good faith process to pair with the commissioners if they're interested in funding such, because that would offset some of the funds they would have to contribute. But again, that's money that's coming to you from somewhere else already, and that's a legitimate use of the funds, and it's needed. And the sooner we start, the sooner we'd be ready to make some changes.
Questions? All right.
So is it the board's wish for me to seek out formal cost estimates for that and discuss that with the county manager, or
I would say
is there more time?
I think we need to know what our options are.
Okay. Part of the discussion would be to show the need for why you would need the extra space to combine those wings, but also that capacity would hold over time as well.
If you're doing that, would it be feasible to show a cost savings that would occur by making that become a K-8 school?
There is some abilities to do that with the needs at the existing Stansburg school and some of the issues that you're running into with the fixed costs as well as the renovations costs that are needed. I know that cafeteria is in bad shape,
Okay.
and we have talked about that.
I think if that is included as part of
Okay.
the scenario and discussion points for the retrofitting of Spate, it helps show the total picture and might help the commissioners to see
Okay. Well,
where savings could occur from their end, long-term.
I will certainly present that to the board ahead of sharing that with them, but at the same time, I'd like to go ahead and share that with y'all and then take that on to them. But I do think an outside, such as a Barnhill, someone like that does the cost estimation and the construction piece might be, firms like that do this a lot to give us some working numbers better than
Okay.
anything. It's not my expertise, I can tell you that much. So,
Is that something that the board as a whole would like to see in a savings estimation because of the
Yes,
merger?
I would.
I think that makes sense to do as well, because you're gonna have that. And again, even the savings estimation, part of that needs to be, and we do have some of that, the cost to repair and renovate or repair some of the issues that we have at the existing Stansburg school now.
Okay.
So that is a fixed cost that's gonna have to be addressed one way or another.
All right.
Okay. And then, that was the, Hmm?
Did you want to show those where it's going to be?
I think y'all remember.
Okay.
If you remember way back when, we talked about redistricting,
Yep.
and the board approved unanimously to do that for the 24-25 school year.
Yes.
All right, so it's the point where we're getting ready to start that process from a data and a logistics standpoint. And what I wanted to know from the board is that the board's wish to employ an outside firm, or would you rather the administration manage the process of the redistricting in terms of the presentation and preparation of the reporting and the mapping? We can look at an outside firm, and vendors can come in and do that next month or next couple months. We could have a separate work session too to do that, but Dr. Williams and I have looked at some software that I've used previously, and it's now in place to allow us to manage the process internally, start to finish. So we've also updated all of our maps with transportation and DPI, and we've sent those to the county planning office. So they've all been unified, if you will. But we need to wait till after the first month's data has been verified for us to load and begin the process. So we're right on the, we're what, less than 10 days away from that being close to being sent. But we need to have that done by the end of the school year, minimum, maximum, so we can have transitions ready. But I'd like to know what the board's feeling is on that before we go any further.
I would like to see the administration handle that if you have the capabilities, and
Okay.
then we don't have to go through a bid process and have that extra downtime waiting for
Okay.
bids and considerations and whatever, if that does not tax the system unduly.
Okay.
Go ahead. It's all three of us.
I would like to see us delay the process for at least a year in light of everything that we have going on right now.
There'd be some advantages to me to delay the year.
Or to,
How's never work? Never work for everybody? No, I'm good. I'll do whatever the board wants to do.
During my tenure on the board, one other time we had an outside source, was during an election year, and here we are again, but that would not be a reason for me to say put it off or not go ahead. Because I've been trying to find somebody
Hush.
interested.
We're not going there.
Well, I agree. Let's delay it for at least 2 years. I'll go along with it. I heard two. Someone said it.
Ms. Boyette, 1 year.
Well-
no, two's good with me. Two's good with me.
Well,
no rush.
I did have a question, and it had nothing to do with the election or whatever. But when you're talking about moving wash inside Beddingfield and putting the culinary instructions there, what effect is that having on, or any effect is it having on the usage of that building?
Wash is none. In terms of usage, it's still, it's space that we would account for with the student assignment. With the CTE program, you're still so out of balance. I mean, you've got to, I don't think that's gonna be enough to balance that out, but I've got coming up the wash slide, so you can see, there's a decision point you need to make with that real quick.
Well, part of our discussion of that redistricting had to deal with the mandate that we had to deal with the underutilization of facilities. With Watt now having its own separate facility and the number of students now at a decrease at Beddingfield. And I know when the discussion came up of expanding the culinary arts program and putting the gaming in, I know that several of you said, well, maybe we can resolve the student population issue by those two programs going into Beddingfield. I don't know if that's a realistic expectation that we're going to have such an influx of students for culinary arts or for the gaming esports to make up that difference. And so that was why the conversation was to go ahead and look at the high school redistricting. The projection was that the population at Hunt was high, that the development in the area, in the county, was more towards that direction, and that you would have an even more of an imbalance. But if it's the will of the board to delay it for a year, but I think we have to have the consideration of all of those points as well, to have a realistic expectation of need at changing those populations and looking at the redistricting. I'll be the first to tell you that, and you already know when we closed two schools, But when you look at redistricting, it's gonna bring out a lot of emotionality, a lot of discontent with what we're doing. And a lot of times you all talk about kicking the can down the road. If you delay, that's just another kick the can down the road. But please feel free to share your comments and concerns in regard to the possibility of the high school redistricting.
My only concern with it is that, you know, there's a lot of housing going up on the western side of Wilson. And if we delay and those students join in to Hunt, and Hunt's already, you know, got a large student population as it is. Yeah, those houses right there across from, is it Bell, right there behind where old Cruisers used to be? Yeah, I rode by there one day and there was nothing. And I ride by there a week later and there's like 7 sitting there. And, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of housing in that subdivision, and that's all Hunt District. I know that there's been some put up on Merck. They're cutting in another street over on Merck. They're doing Cranberry Ridge. You know, if we delay a year, I think that would be the maximum that we would need to delay, because that side of Wilson's growing and quickly.
What about, Mr. Boykin, I ask you, since you're a builder, the east side, because I was talking to a city council member, and they were talking about the things that they were planning, and they were talking about a subdivision potentially going up on the east side, and talk of something like Smithfield Pottery would, that was part of the things they've been talking about. I've heard so many different stories, but have you heard of any building of subdivisions in that area that could feed into Beddingfield?
Well, there's, what, 205 going up on Sandpit Road right now? That's in Stantonsburg.
On what road?
Stantonburg.
In Stantonsburg.
In Sandsburg.
And they would go to Hunt, to Beddingfield.
They would, yes.
Yeah.
Beddingfield.
I know that,
There's some of the other, in the road too.
yeah,
Down
I
past.
think that there's plans right now to start right beside the Moose Lodge. I think they're putting in a subdivision in between Truist and the Moose Lodge. Which I don't know if that would be Bedingfield or Fight.
I have to look it up.
I know that there's some planned housing to go out towards Saratoga. So, I mean, there is housing going out there.
So I agree with the delay of at least a year and see how the development is going, because right now I feel like our heads just wrapped up with the building of, rebuilding of the new Frederick Douglass. We're talking about the Wells and the Hearn, rebuilding, we're talking about retrofitting Spade. It's just a lot going on. And I'm just ready to see some projects come to a close. I know time is everything, we've got to wait, but I think at least a year minimum or maximum.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
And something that, about the capacity at Hunt that opened my eyes a little bit, with so many students that are taking classes online now at home, the virtual classes, the capacity issues that we experienced years ago are not as critical, because you don't have as many students at school at the same time. And whenever we were doing reassignment requests, it wasn't nearly as hard to look at them and be able to grant reassignments with especially with the public schools are under assault right now. I just would hate for us to do something else to anger people when we're trying to
Are
get
you
them.
talking about at the high school level, the CCP courses that the students are taking online, or you're talking about WAVE?
Well, I'm talking about the ones that don't come to school until maybe third period, or don't, you know, they come
It's
to
CC
period,
it's CCP.
whichever.
The dual-
well, I
It's
don't
lot
know
of
what
dual
they're
enrollment.
called.
It's the dual
A lot of dual
enrollment,
enrollment
CCP.
students, yeah.
Yeah, and they're just not at school all at the same time anymore. I mean, if, Mr. Williams, if you, or Dr. Williams, if you have anything that you could add, I would appreciate it. But I just know the reassignment request that we got this year, it was just easier to look at numbers and what the principals were saying and saying they can take more children, or students. I know Rock Ridge and New Hope were about the only two that we weren't able to accommodate if there was any type of,
Yes, ma'am, it was those two, because of K-3 class size legislation. And then we had some towards the end of the summer where, you know, some elementary schools and a couple middle schools were filling up.
but the high schools were not, am I correct in saying they were really not an issue as far as capacity?
No, ma'am, we didn't deny any reassignments at the high school level due to capacity. No, ma'am.
All right. So does that require a motion and a vote? Because I think we had acted before and said we were gonna do, or did we take a formal vote on that?
We did take a formal vote last
So if
time.
we took a formal vote, I think we would need to take a formal vote in order to delay that for a year. And according to the agenda, if needed, we could vote on issues in regard to the long-range facilities planning. Okay.
Did you say 2 years?
Is
You
it
said 1
something
year.
that's, is that something that fits this agenda?
You know, Ms. Powell, that's gonna be up to the board. I, don't look at me and say, is that 2 years or
Depends
1
on the
year?
motion.
Just saying.
Well, let's hear the motion. If there is a motion, it's gonna take action in order for it to change, because we had already taken action that we would do that this year.
Madam Chair, I move that we delay the redistricting of the high schools for 2 years, for a minimum of 2 years.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that we hold redistricting of high school considerations for the next, in abeyance for the next 2 years. Is there any discussion? Did that get to your motion? Okay. Mr. Mercer?
I'm not opposed to delaying it, but I'd prefer 1 year, because at the end of 1 year, as Mr. Boykin has mentioned, we could do it for another year at that point if we needed to. But if we say a minimum of 2 years now, not that we couldn't change that too, it appears we can change about anything, but I'd feel more comfortable with 1 year.
All right.
I would as well. I would as well.
Well, then your vote either,
Yea or nay?
either approves the motion or disapproves the motion, if I'm not mistaken, because her motion was for a 2-year abeyance. Ms. Cornetta?
It's possible that there could be a friendly amendment that says you're delaying for a year and revisiting in that year. And that way you're basically,
Leaving options open?
yes, I mean, it's up to y'all, but I just wanted to.
I like that.
Yes.
I am
Would the maker
open.
of the motion
Yeah.
accept the friendly amendment?
Yes, I would.
Well,
About the second.
that's my friendly amendment
It's
then.
gonna be on me.
Okay, so the maker of the motion is willing to accept a friendly amendment. So It has been moved and properly seconded. Motion made by Mrs. Boyette, seconded by, who was it?
Ms. Powell.
Ms. Powell.
Ms. Powell.
That we hold in abeyance the redistricting at the high school level for a minimum of 1 year with a reconsideration possible for 2 years within the intervening time. Is that correct? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously, and also let the record reflect that Mr. Breen had previously left the meeting, so that it's not a 7-0, but it's a 6-0, which is still unanimous at this time. All right.
All right.
Dr. Mills?
I'll save us a lot of time. Wash clinics at Bettyfield, we talked about that will go back in on that wing on the end there. We talked to the Healthcare Foundation, Dr. Williams has done so, and they are in support of that change. So that will be underway soon. We're gonna get some folks to help us with those renovations. Those will be significant because it's gonna be plumbing in the floor they've got to get to and tie that in, but that's right there at that end. I'll show you in just a second real quickly. They've also asked us about another wash clinic at Darden. And so Dr. Williams has gone out with Mr. Woodard, and they've located a classroom space on the 6th grade hallway where there's access to a side entrance, and you're near water sewer supply for retrofitting, which will save a lot. And the Healthcare Foundation certainly is in support of that, but they also like that location. It works for us and allows space. That building is a lot more full since the schools were consolidated, even without technology there. And we wanted to make sure you're okay with those selections, and we anticipate with us being able to bring in outside help to do that, then August would be a timetable for that. We do not have the capacity to do all that work and everything else we've got going on. And I did talk to, and Ben did as well, talk to the Healthcare Foundation about us working through these things, and so we can do some, but not all. And so getting that time frame done, and Ben, if you'll show where the one is at Bettyfield, that's the one where as you come in where the offices are now for the old Watt. We've shown that before. But the one that I think I wanted you to see mostly was the one at Darden. The red dot is the front entrance of the school now. So right there to your, if you're facing in the entrance to school, to your left, that side entrance right there with the glass doors, you could come in right there across from the art room and come right past that workroom and that set of restrooms, and that classroom space right there could be used in that area for the wash clinic. So you'd have an entrance almost right at the clinic, which is really good. Almost like what Fight Cash, you step in the back door back there and you're almost at it. And so there's a way for us to secure that, and you've got good visibility. But also they've got access to, again, water and sewer for some things that we don't want to start getting into major with that, so.
So that would give us 4 wash clinics?
2 middle schools, and
And
then.
then it would, okay, 2
then
middle and then 2 high.
schools.
That would
You
give
got-
us 4.
You got
No,
3
we
high,
have
you
three.
got 3 high.
3 high
schools.
schools.
3 high schools, yeah.
Yes, 3 high schools, Bedfield, Hunt,
Five.
Pike,
Mm-hmm.
and now
Forest
2
Hills.
middle
It'd
schools.
be Darden, and so you'd be at 5.
That would give us 5 clinics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm
What-
glad to see.
What would we do with the mobile unit that
That was
formerly
my house
housed?
fixing that.
Y'all have asked every time I've told you, I have no clue yet.
Okay.
Is that Bettyfield's?
I think I'm gonna store those bricks
The one at
in
Bettyfield.
there. I'm gonna store those bricks from.
That was the only one that was
Frederick Douglass in there.
You
outside.
can send it over there to Hunt to replace that one that the floor's
There's a
falling out
couple
on.
bad ones.
Oh,
I've removed 8 over the last 2 years. We're still taking them out. Don't worry. We talked about what we could use it
Could we
for.
reconfigure that? to be-
Don't, please, just
Oh,
let
I'm sorry.
please.
Madam Secretary, I
Please.
make a
I
motion
promise
that-
you, we're going to do something with it. Just don't ask me right
Okay, I
now.
won't ask for particulars. at
It's
this
ours
point.
though, it's ours, and we're gonna find a good place for it.
What I thought that it was,
It'll get
that
It
it
is.
had been given to
It
us.
was gifted
so-
to us by,
Yes,
by the county.
yes.
May I make a formal motion, Dr. Fisher, or are we still discussing?
Let me go right.
Do we need a motion, Ms. Cornetta, for this clinic and for whatever those changes are?
Do we know we have the funds for it? Then I would
Well-
say
Through the
yes.
foundation.
The foundation is, the Healthcare Foundation, and is the funder for,
They will,
this.
they will,
Yeah,
they will
I'd
cover
prefer
the
you have a
cost.
motion just to make sure that we connect that with insuring funds.
okay. Any other discussion?
Typically, they will reimburse us for,
Okay.
and that's fine.
Okay, Ms. Barnes?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the selection of the wash clinics at Darden Middle School and the relocation of the Watt Center from the outside to the inside of Bedingfield with the insurance of funding from the foundation,
Second.
Health Foundation.
It has been moved and properly seconded, moved by Mrs. Barnes, seconded by Mr. Mercer, that we approve the establishment of the wash clinic at Darden Middle School, the relocation of the wash clinic at Bedingfield into the portion of the vacated space for Watt, ensuring funding through the Healthcare Foundation. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. And with that motion, Dr. Mills, we know that
I took care of it.
you will make best use of the current unit at Bedingfield to whatever configuration is
You
necessary.
just had to mention it again, didn't you?
I did.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I wanted to be
I'll tell you
perfectly,
what, I'm gonna
I
hide that
wanted to be
thing.
perfectly clear.
I'm gonna hide that thing.
We had enough issue when we put it there. All right,
I promise you I will.
Dr. Mills, next.
Next, let me save us a lot of time. Based on everything we have on our plate and everything we talked about today, would it be okay with the board if we just find someone to give us a cost estimate of what this project may run for the new elementary school, just to have some working numbers, but go no further with that until we get that right now, and I can loop back later. Y'all okay with that?
I agree with that because
Yes, sir.
You've got enough
So
on
much
your
going
plate
on.
right now for me to go have conversations with. Without this going any further, I know you've discussed this, but I would recommend just letting us get some more cost estimate, more formal cost estimate, just from a roundabout way before we go any further.
Is that a motionable action or, okay, we're just
I
directing.
think I just need you to know it's okay for
Okay.
me not to bring anything and you're not looking for anything.
Dr.
what I'm
Mills,
asking.
please feel free to do what is necessary to.
I'm there. I'm gonna put in that mobile unit and I'm gonna
I got
cipher on
an
it.
action
I'm
and
gonna think
some
on
wheels
it.
if you need them.
I'm
All
gonna think
right.
on it. Okay.
Then Dr. Mills, what else?
Next is, we're at the last slide. And the first one, obviously, is antiquated because y'all changed it. So we're not gonna wait till once the state budget is passed. I'm gonna talk to Mr. Hunt tomorrow.
All right,
The second one is antiquated because you changed
We
that
just-
about 30 seconds ago.
yes.
So, no problem. And then, the third one is, Dr. Williams and I were talking, and we've looked at some other districts, and is there any interest, and you don't have to answer this today, you don't have to answer this at all, but, is the board interested at all in looking at options for contracting with outside vendors to assist with creating and delivering a 5-year capital or 5-year, 10-year capital plan? There are systems that do that, have vendors that come in and have done that. And they vary from systems like us, bigger, smaller, there's, options exist. I didn't know if that would be something you would want to take a look at. There's some value in it, and there's some cost in it. I just wanted to throw that out there to see if that's something, you'd like at least to know what it costs, who does it, what it would look like, because I think that's a question that comes up a lot.
I think that would be valuable to have that
Okay.
information. Are there vendors available to do
There
that?
are.
What kind of cost would be associated with that?
Maybe sample
And-
some reports to see what it might look like.
Yes,
Okay.
if possible. Is that fit the wish of the board?
Okay.
All right, Dr. Mills?
I thought that might, we're a good point to do
Cost to
that.
go shopping.
And regarding the last bullet, I'd say, follow back up with a date for, once I get some more information, and we can do that at another time.
I think if you begin that discussion with the county manager and,
I think I'll know
and do
more, I'll know
that.
more than, probably by the board meeting to talk about a date.
all right,
How's that?
that'll be fine,
The board meets Monday,
yes.
and at your place, you have a folder with homework for you to read, and that's all I'll say about that.
All right.
It's good homework.
That can go along with the reading of your board packet in
Thank you.
preparation for Monday's meeting. Is there anything else to come before us? Ms. Cornetta, it looked like you were biting at the bit. Oh, okay. Is there anything else to come before us? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for adjournment.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Barnes, seconded by Mr. Mercer, that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Thank
Yeah.
you.